Harley-Davidson is preparing to unveil their big announcement, the Sprint, in the second quarter of 2025. This low-cost $6,000 motorcycle is planned for release in 2026, with dealers getting an early look in October. To many, this feels more like a mistake than a breakthrough. It highlights just how much Harley seems to be running out of fresh ideas, and the whole situation borders on absurd. The move completely contradicts what Jochen Seitz once said about Harley's future. He cut out the cheaper models because he wanted the company to cater only to wealthy buyers. His vision was to sell high-end motorcycles in the $20,000 to $50,000 range to customers with deep pockets, believing Harley could thrive by focusing solely on that niche. Now, without warning, the company is shifting gears and pushing out a $6,000 option. It looks like Harley has finally realized that their earlier plan was flawed and are scrambling to pivot. The strategy feels uncertain at best. Riders, as expected, are split. Some see hope, thinking, maybe Harley finally understands that people want bikes they can actually afford. Others remain doubtful, convinced this is just another empty Harley move that will flop, just like the Livewire electric bike or that overpriced Icon series nobody cared for. Think back to those Harley collectibles that never grew in value over time. Now the question is whether the Sprint is Harley's way to win riders back or just another letdown. The numbers matter here. In the first quarter of 2025, deliveries fell by a third, and in the most recent 3 months, in-store sales dropped by 21%. That's not a minor setback, it's a serious problem. Releasing a smaller, cheaper bike so suddenly doesn't feel like a breakthrough strategy, it feels like a desperate move. Selling a motorcycle at $6,000 isn't a sustainable plan, it's a risky gamble. So what exactly is Harley offering? The Sprint is being promoted as a bike priced lower than the Nightster, currently Harley's most affordable model. The Nightster's base price is $9,999, but with taxes and extra fees, the real cost is closer to $10,000. Harley calls that affordable. Now they're suggesting the Sprint will be even less expensive. On paper, it sounds appealing, but Harley's track record doesn't inspire confidence. They claim the Sprint takes inspiration from the old Airmashi Sprint of the 60s and 70s, which came in 250cc and 350cc versions. Those bikes were light and charming, but calling them fierce would be like calling a Vespa a battlefield machine. People didn't look at the Airmashi Sprint as a tough, rebellious bike, but more like a stylish scooter. Now Harley-Davidson is trying to take that same image and use it for a dramatic comeback. Convincing riders of that will be difficult. On top of it, this project has been in the works since 2021, which feels like an eternity for something still so unclear. Harley hasn't shared any engine details. No one knows how strong it is, how it's built, or even the basics of its design. There's no information about the size or the frame. They keep saying a new motorcycle is on the way, but there's nothing solid behind the claim. It's like promoting a film but only giving out the title. That's where Harley stands now. Riders aren't buying into the hype, and it's no surprise. Online, people are mocking the company with remarks like, another Harley announcement with nothing real to show. It's exactly the kind of reaction Harley has earned. Their reputation is tied to promising one thing and then delivering something else. Advertising an affordable price only to tack on fees that push the cost up by thousands. The Sprint looks like it's heading straight into the same problems Harley has faced before. But honestly, the Sprint isn't even the biggest issue here. The real problem is how much Harley has alienated its own riders. When Seitz decided to focus only on luxury models, Harley essentially cut its audience in half. They walked away from younger riders, budget-conscious riders, and anyone who couldn't afford a high-priced machine. Inflation only made the situation worse. People struggling to cover essentials like food and housing aren't eager to spend on an expensive motorcycle. Harley staked its future on a smaller circle of older, wealthy customers, but that group is shrinking fast. At the same time, brands like Royal Enfield and Honda are thriving. These companies are building practical motorcycles in the $5,000 to $7,000 range, and buyers see the value. The bikes are reliable, tough, and affordable. Riders are noticing. Harley now thinks it can jump in with a $6,000 bike and find success, despite having ignored that part of the market for years while Royal Enfield steadily grew. It's doubtful. The truth is, many people who once dreamed of owning a Harley now feel left behind. That dream once stood for freedom, not draining your wallet just to own a motorcycle. Harley-Davidson essentially sent a message to buyers: we don't build bikes for everyday people. That's not an exaggeration, it's exactly how one industry expert summed up Harley's strategy. The problem is obvious. There are far more average riders than there are wealthy ones. What kind of future can a company expect if it depends on rich customers who are disappearing faster than new ones arrive? That's the challenge Harley-Davidson is now stuck with. For years, they ignored beginners, catering only to the affluent, and now they're scrambling to make a comeback with the Sprint model. But instead of looking like smart innovation, it feels more like an act of desperation. Riders don't trust it. Investors don't trust it. And honestly, why should they? A brand known for broken promises, overpriced gimmicks, and misleading its customers isn't going to inspire confidence in yet another uncertain release. Harley's biggest failure isn't just about money anymore. It's the collapse of its reputation. They've made a complete mess of things. Harley-Davidson once stood for being unique, tough, and proud of hard work. Now, they've decided it was smarter to shift focus toward environmental and social agendas. They even attached their brand to events like Drag Queen Storytime. Riders aren't impressed. Veterans, truckers, and the working class, the very foundation of Harley's customer base, feel insulted. They never asked for Harley to lecture them on social issues. What they wanted was a dependable motorcycle, not political messaging from the company. Instead of focusing on making their bikes better, Harley chose to chase after trendy causes. Congratulations, Harley. You've managed to become the Bud Light of motorcycles. Looking at Bud Light, Sturgis 2025 made it clear that riders had moved past Harley-Davidson. The country's biggest motorcycle rally, once completely dominated by Harley, showed a different picture this year. Their massive display area stood unused, with rows of bikes left unsold and staff distracted by their phones. There wasn't even frustration in the air, just silence. Riders passed by without a glance, treating Harley as if it no longer existed. To make matters worse, Budweiser's section, even while dealing with its own setbacks, managed to attract more attention than Harley. Imagine being Harley-Davidson, once the symbol of American motorcycle culture, and now struggling to draw a bigger crowd than Bud Light at Sturgis. That goes beyond embarrassing. When Harley's tent sat empty, workers in Wisconsin were furious. Employees in Menominee Falls felt betrayed after learning that production of the 2025 motorcycles was being shifted to Thailand. Harley had promised that overseas factories were meant only to serve Asia and Europe, and that was the story they gave. Now, however, bikes meant for American riders are being built abroad and shipped back with "Assembled in America" labels, as if no one would notice the truth. These are the same employees who stood by Harley through difficult years, and their loyalty is being repaid with layoffs and hollow statements. It isn't even the first time. Back in 2019, Harley pulled the same move in Kansas City, cutting 600 jobs that never came back. The pattern is impossible to ignore. Once Harley-Davidson shifts production outside of the United States, those jobs and factories rarely come back. What used to be the proud claim of "Made in America" has, for many riders, turned into an empty slogan that now points to work being done overseas. Riders see through this, and they don't mistake marketing for reality. They know when a company isn't being straightforward, and to them, Harley's choices feel like dishonesty wrapped in patriotic branding. Meanwhile, Harley's biggest rival is doing the opposite, earning trust by respecting riders and giving them the sense of pride that Harley seems to have left behind. Indian Motorcycle has stepped right into the space Harley abandoned, turning Harley's missteps into an opportunity to grow stronger. While Harley has spent energy highlighting corporate social responsibility programs and environmental reporting, Indian has been leaning hard into the values that riders actually connect with: American heritage, genuine respect for veterans, and the traditions that bikers hold close. Their Scout line is a clear example of this approach. Instead of standing still, they've expanded it to include 5 distinct versions, each offering riders more than 100 horsepower, refreshed modern styling, customizable suspension, multiple riding modes, and even conveniences like keyless ignition. The result is a lineup that feels alive, practical, and rooted in what today's motorcycle community actually wants. A stark contrast to Harley's distracted focus and fading appeal. The Nightster is struggling to make an impression, and many riders openly admit it doesn't measure up to other bikes on the road. Comparisons to Indian motorcycles keep surfacing, with owners pointing out how much less maintenance Indians require compared to Harleys. Stories of riders abandoning Harley-Davidson for Indian are becoming more frequent, and they're not keeping these decisions quiet. They're proudly posting about their switch online, treating it as a badge of honor. What makes the sting even sharper is that Indian hasn't simply copied Harley's blueprint. Instead, they've refined it, offering bikes that feel more in tune with modern expectations. Today's riders want to feel respected and appreciated, not dismissed or taken for granted, and Indian seems to be delivering exactly that at a time when Harley is falling short. The cracks in Harley-Davidson's image are easy to spot. A quick glance at resale platforms like Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace reveals an overwhelming number of used Harleys up for grabs. The supply is so large that it signals a lack of demand, and the financial hit for owners is staggering. In cities like Nashville, Phoenix, and Orlando, nearly new Softail models and even high-end touring bikes are being listed at prices that are only a fraction of their original cost. The numbers tell a grim story. A motorcycle purchased for $30,000 just a year ago now struggles to find a buyer even at $10,000. For a brand once associated with lasting value and pride of ownership, this steep decline is more than just an economic issue. It's a symbol of how much ground Harley has lost in the eyes of its own community. Motorcycle owners are growing uneasy, with many choosing to sell their bikes before they lose even more value in the market. What was once a prized possession is now turning into a financial liability. Dealers themselves are hesitant to accept trade-ins, not because they don't want customers, but because their lots are already filled with motorcycles that nobody seems eager to buy. The financial landscape around bikes has also shifted. Loans are harder to get, banks are wary of lending, and fewer people want to take the risk of buying a motorcycle that depreciates the moment it leaves the showroom. Harley-Davidson, once seen as a safe and proud investment, is now viewed as a weight dragging owners down, something they feel forced to part with rather than hold on to with pride. This trend hasn't gone unnoticed by financial experts. By the middle of 2025, analysts began scaling back their projections for Harley-Davidson's performance, a sign that confidence in the company was fading. Investors, frustrated and confused, demanded answers, while Congress launched inquiries into Harley's financial stability. Politicians openly questioned how a company that had received over $100 million in government support could justify moving jobs overseas. When both the riding community and government officials are angry with you, the storm is far too big to ignore, and the future of the brand begins to look more uncertain than ever. Yet despite these mounting challenges, Harley-Davidson continues to act as if everything is under control, presenting a calm front even as the ground shifts beneath them. Riders themselves are divided over the new, lower-cost motorcycle the company has released. Some optimistically hope it signals a return to affordability and accessibility in the market. Others are more skeptical, comparing it to previous budget-friendly models that failed to win long-term support. What is most striking is that the fierce brand loyalty Harley enjoyed for decades, an unshakable bond between riders and the company, is beginning to erode. Once that loyalty slips away, it's incredibly difficult to rebuild, and Harley-Davidson risks losing the trust that kept its name alive across generations. People who once proudly wore Harley-Davidson tattoos are now stitching Made in Heartland patches onto their jackets, signaling a shift in identity. Some have gone even further, trading in their Harleys for Indian motorcycles or other competing brands, showing that loyalty has its limits. The legendary Evolution engine, once a symbol of the company's strength, no longer has the power to keep the brand afloat in the eyes of riders. What was once an unshakable history now feels fractured and uncertain. Harley-Davidson's response, or lack thereof, only deepens the divide. Their social media channels remain silent, offering no pushback, no defense, and no acknowledgement of the frustration bubbling among riders. The brand has faced tough questions in Congress about moving jobs overseas, and from investors worried about its future. Yet Harley-Davidson behaves as if its community of riders will simply let things slide and move on. But riders don't forget. They are watching, remembering, and keeping score. The real question is whether Harley-Davidson is actually hearing what its people are saying, or if it has tuned them out completely. In the end, this whole situation could easily come across as nothing more than a carefully staged act of rebellion by the company itself. Motorcycle enthusiasts are sharp. They know when words are just marketing slogans and when they're backed by genuine loyalty and action. Many are already calling this moment a rebellion, unlike anything American motorcycle culture has seen in decades, a movement rising from the riders themselves. It's not just about Harley selling fewer motorcycles. It's about the brand losing the very soul that made people care about it in the first first place. Once that bond is broken, no budget-friendly bike, no flashy corporate initiative, and no environmentally friendly campaign will be able to restore the spirit that has slipped away. The danger Harley faces now isn't just declining sales, it's the collapse of the trust and emotional connection that kept the brand alive for generations.